Our intention is to get more knowledges about unknown facts, so we make lot of informations to show you. Please watch this full video.
Seeing something and understanding it are two different things. A trained archaeologist, historian, or scientist might have a better chance of understanding an ancient artifact than you or I, but even they sometimes find themselves struggling to explain what they're looking at. We love a good archaeological mystery, though. And we hope you do too, because this video is packed full of some of the best we've ever seen. In 1828, a Dutch museum acquired a mysterious ancient Egyptian artifact. Its history prior to arrival at the museum is unclear, but scientific analysis of the alabaster disc indicated that it's around 4,500 years old. Into the disc, which might possibly have been a tabletop at one point in the distant past, 7 small holes have been drilled, which were probably used to hold oils and incense sticks. Some people believe that it might have been used for embalming, but there are others who believe that it resembles a control panel of some kind. The disc's whole surface is covered in hieroglyphs and markings, some of which have never been seen on any other ancient Egyptian object. It's highly likely that the inscriptions are a set of instructions that lay out the purpose of the object. But as we've never been able to fully translate them, it's impossible to know for sure. Why would anyone go to such trouble to elaborately decorate a table, only for it to be used for embalming? Our next artifact is also made of stone, and although it's far smaller than the strange Egyptian object, it's no less mysterious. It was found during excavation work in Vologda, Russia in November 2013, and is no larger than a matchbox. The markings and holes on it have an industrial style, and it's possible that it might once have been part of something much larger. Nothing like it has been found elsewhere in Russia, or even elsewhere in the world. Because it's made from stone, we haven't been able to work out its approximate age. The cultural layer it was found in dates back to the 18th century, but that's not to say that this strange object dates from the same time. It may be far older than that. Archaeologist Natalia Vasilyeva, who has had the opportunity to inspect the artifact in person, believes that it was once part of a mechanism and may have been used in a navigational device. Alternatively, it could be a religious artifact belonging to a pagan cult. We really have no idea, and nor do scientists. The site of Cusco in Peru is already famous for the ancient fort of Sacsayhuaman, which is itself a mysterious structure. We're not focusing on Sacsayhuaman today, though. Instead, we're gazing in wonder at this bizarre upside-down staircase, which has been carved directly into the face of a large granite rock. Of all the materials that the Inca could work with, granite would have been the most difficult. It's difficult for us to carve and shape it even with modern tools, and so to the Inca living several centuries ago, it ought to have been almost impossible. Clearly, a staircase that's upside down would have been useless, and even if it were the right way up, it doesn't lead anywhere. It's possible that it's an incomplete piece of building work that was abandoned before it was completed. But even if that were the case, there's no clear reason why the Inca would have chosen to start trying to shape such a difficult rock in a strategically unimportant location and then give up after working so hard at shaping it. We've become accustomed to finding dinosaur fossils in the ground over the course of the past few centuries. But even so, some dinosaur fossils provoke more excitement than others. This one, found in Alberta, Canada in 2013, definitely fits into that category. It was found by accident by an oil company employee who was digging into the ground using heavy machinery. But he immediately realized the significance of what he'd found and called in the experts. A team arrived from the Philip J. Curie Dinosaur Museum of Grand Prairie, who concluded that this is the tailbone of a hadrosaur, an enormous species of duck-billed dinosaur. The fact that this 10-foot-long fossil is only the creature's tail gives you a sense of how enormous the full dinosaur would have been. The experts believe that it probably measured 50 feet from its tail to the tip of its beak. Sadly, and somewhat mysteriously, there's no sign of the rest of the dinosaur at the site. Nevertheless, it's considered one of Canada's most significant dinosaur discoveries during the past 50 years. In 2017, a truly amazing ancient Assyrian vase was sold by Christie's auction house in London. It's an incredible feat of amethyst engineering and would be almost impossible to recreate using modern tools. How a craftsperson managed to create this 2,800 years ago is mind-boggling. It's only 3 inches tall, and yet it's been crafted with such precision that the bottom of the vase is as smooth and curved as an eggshell. Despite that, it can stand upright with no support, even though the area of the vase that's in contact with the surface it's standing on is so small that it's almost microscopic. You wouldn't be able to balance an egg on a table like this without it toppling over. So how is this beautiful vase somehow defying gravity in this way? Whoever created this stunning piece didn't have the benefit of working with a magnifying glass, so they must have had extraordinarily good eyesight and exceptionally steady hands. It might be tiny, but it has the right to be called one of the most incredible vases ever made. You might have heard of the town of Roswell in New Mexico, USA, from the alleged UFO crash landing that happened there several decades ago. That's not the only strange thing to have happened in Roswell. There's also the matter of this strange stone, which a local resident found in September 2004. Someone has gone to the trouble of creating a very smooth, very elaborate pattern on the stone, and they've somehow managed to do it without leaving a single trace of whatever machinery or tool they used to make it. Even under a microscope and subjected to multiple magnifications, there are no cuts or abrasions at the edge of the markings at all. It's as if they appeared on the stone naturally, which is obviously not the case. To add a further layer of intrigue, the stone is magnetic. Place a magnet next to one of the crescent moon shapes engraved on the surface, and it will spin in a clockwise direction. Place that same magnet next to the other crescent moon, and it spins the other way. Add that to the fact that the design on the surface is identical to one that turned up as a so-called crop circle in a field in England in 1996, and you're looking at a mystery for the ages. Our next artifact isn't a singular discovery, but one that's been found many times over. Wherever the ancient Romans traveled across Europe, they left these little dodecahedrons behind them. Hundreds of examples of the artifacts have been discovered, and although some of them turn up on dry land, the majority of them have been discovered in shipwrecks. That implies that they might have been some kind of navigational aid, although how they could have been of any practical assistance in that scenario is unknown. The earliest known examples of the objects were made from stone, but over the centuries, the people who made them began to use bronze as a building material instead. Some historians have speculated that they might have been elaborate candle holders, but we'd expect to see them in as many houses as we do shipwrecks if that were the case. It's perhaps more likely that they were used as part of a game that bored Roman soldiers played while they were making long journeys across the sea. But even that's just a guess. The only thing we can say with any certainty is that the Romans were very fond of them and made them in vast quantities for hundreds of years. Leonardo da Vinci is one of the most talented human beings who ever lived. Aside from being an incredible painter, he was also an inventor and a physician, with knowledge of the human form and the world around him that appeared to make him years ahead of his time. Did he have a little help from alien visitors? Some people certainly think so, and they've reached that conclusion by examining his famous painting, John the Baptist. Hold up a mirror to the edge of the painting, and you get a very clear picture of what looks very much like the classic interpretation of an alien's face. It has the same big eyes, stub nose, and thin lip that appear in the descriptions of dozens of people who claim to have met or been abducted by aliens. It's possible that this is a coincidence, but it's hard to understand why Da Vinci would have painted such a detailed shape in what ought to be a blank section of the canvas. Da Vinci didn't do anything by accident, so what could he have meant by this? While we're on the topic of strange things turning up in ancient works of art, cast your eyes over these ancient Sumerian bas-reliefs. At first glance, they appear to be beautiful but otherwise normal depictions of human beings working and hunting. But pay closer attention to their arms and their wrists. It looks for all the world like these ancient people are wearing modern-looking wristwatches. These aren't the only out-of-place objects that are said to be visible in ancient Sumerian works of art. Some people claim that there are spaceships in a few of the bas-reliefs, but the alleged spaceships don't look anything like as clear as these wristwatches do. You can even make out the markings on the faces. We know that the Sumerians had an advanced understanding of time 2,700 years ago. They had a calendar that was specific to their civilization, which, according to their creation myth, was given to them by the Anunnaki, who created all human life. We also know that they were considerably more advanced than many of their neighboring civilizations in terms of astronomy and medicine. Did their knowledge expand to clockwork and the manufacture of timepieces? Probably not, but we can't think what else these objects might be. Since we were wondering whether aliens visited Leonardo da Vinci a few moments ago, we might also wonder whether they played a role in the creation of the Baigong pipes in China. The pipes are made of iron, which is a little problematic based on their age. They're at least 5,000 years old, although some alternative tests have suggested that they might be closer to 300,000. All of the pipes are hollow, and they're made of iron and calcium oxide. The most recent set of tests performed on them was carried out in 2001. That gave them yet another age, this time 150,000 years. And that predates any known civilization in the area by a very long time. At any rate, it's long before the Iron Age. That rules out the idea of them being created by humans. And so it's no wonder that conspiracy theorists claim that they were part of an ancient alien base. Is there a more plausible explanation? Possibly. Experts say that the pipes were created when minerals formed around the roots of trees thousands of years ago, encasing them completely. Over time, the trees rotted away, leaving behind only the hollow shells of the mineral casings that grew around them. That might be correct, but if so, shouldn't something similar have happened elsewhere in the world? Rather than coming up with unlikely explanations, experts will sometimes admit that they're stuck with a problem and ask the public for help. In 2015, the British Museum asked for help in translating the inscription on the side of a double-edged 13th century sword. The sword is typical of the style that was used by European knights of the era, and several like it have been found, but none of them have inscriptions like this one. Based on the steel used in the blade, it was probably manufactured in Germany, but owned by an English knight and then lost for centuries before being discovered in a river in Lincolnshire in 1825. The lettering on the blade is English, but incomprehensible. It reads INDXOXCHWDRGHDXORVI with a plus sign on the end. Historians have speculated that it might be a religious incantation or a blessing of some kind, but have no idea as to its content. If you're able to help, they're still open to suggestions. Even in the 5 years since they reached out to the public, nobody's been able to solve the riddle. Vampires are one of the all-time classic horror story creations. We love scaring ourselves with tales of these blood-sucking immortal beings who come out at night and transform into bats. But we can relax safe in the knowledge that they aren't real. Or are they? Vampire stories tell us that the only way to kill one of the creatures permanently is to drive a stake through its heart. And a skeleton found with a metal stake piercing its chest in the ancient city of Perperikon, Bulgaria in 2014 made residents wonder if a vampire once terrorized their local area. The discovery was made by Professor Nikolai Ovkarov, famous as an Indiana Jones-type figure in his home country, and he says that this unfortunate person was buried at some point during the 13th century. More worryingly, he says this is one of 3 such burials he's found in Bulgaria, and claims to know of at least 100 more elsewhere in the world. Oddly, in this case, the skeleton's left leg was removed after death, and then placed next to the body. Clearly, whoever buried this person wanted to be absolutely sure that they weren't going to rise from the grave and come chasing after them. Subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and enjoy watching new videos on my channel. Thanks for watching, and see you soon!
Thanks for you to watch our video. We hope you enjoy this video. Please subscribe my channel.